All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to unpack what I think is one of the greatest engineering marvels of the entire natural world. We're going on a seriously mind-blowing journey today. We'll start from the basic biology of how life survives beneath the waves, and we'll go all the way to the bizarre, totally rule-breaking extremes of evolutionary engineering. Honestly, if you've ever watched a fish just hovering in a tank and wondered, what exactly is going on behind those moving gills? Well, you are definitely in the right place.
So let's hook right into our first big question. Why do fish die in the air while we drown in the water? It seems like a super simple question, right? We have lungs designed for air, they have gills designed for water, duh. But the actual mechanics of why a fish suffocates on dry land, it is absolutely fascinating. You see, a fish's gills are incredibly delicate. In the water, they float. They remain perfectly spread out, kind of like the feathery branches of an underwater plant. But the very second you take a fish out of water, gravity takes over. Without the buoyancy of the water to support them, those ultra-thin gill filaments completely collapse. They just stick together. The surface area basically disappears, and the oxygen transfer shuts down entirely. They literally suffocate because their breathing apparatus gets glued shut by gravity. Wild, right?
Now, what is truly staggering here is the sheer efficiency of these underwater breathers. Just look at that number, 80%. When you or I take a deep breath of air, our lungs are, well, actually pretty inefficient. We only extract about 25% of the available oxygen. But fish, they can extract up to 80% of the dissolved oxygen from the water passing through their gills. I mean, they completely put human lungs to shame. And, they really have to be this efficient because water contains drastically less oxygen than the atmosphere does.
Section 1, the engineering marvel, gills. So how exactly do they achieve this incredible 80% extraction rate? Well, gills are structured with millions of tiny folds. You have the main gill arches, which branch into primary filaments, and then those branch again into microscopic secondary folds called lamella. This multi-level folding creates a massive, massive surface area. Just to put it into perspective for you, the total respiratory surface area of a fish's gills can actually be hundreds of times larger than the surface area of its entire body.
But here's the thing, surface area alone just isn't enough. The real secret sauce here is countercurrent flow. This is a brilliant physics trick that evolution figured out millions of years ago. In a fish's gills, water flows in one direction, while the blood inside the microscopic capillaries flows in the exact opposite direction. Why? Well, if they flowed parallel to each other, the oxygen levels between the water and the blood would quickly reach equilibrium at about 50%, and then oxygen transfer would just stop. It'd be over. But with countercurrent flow, equilibrium is never reached. The blood is constantly meeting water that has a slightly higher oxygen concentration. This means oxygen is relentlessly being absorbed along the entire length of the capillary. It is a literal masterpiece of fluid dynamics. Now, to keep this whole process going, the fish has to keep water moving constantly. Most fish use a two-part biological pumping system, the buccal and opercular pumps. Here's how it works. Step 1, the fish opens its mouth and expands its oral cavity, drawing water in while keeping the gill covers shut. Step 2, the mouth closes, the space compresses, and pressure builds up. Step 3, this pressure forces the water directly over the gills and out through the gill slits. They are actively swallowing water, pumping it through their heads every single second of their lives. Which brings us to a rather exhausting reality. Water is dense, it is heavy, and it's thick compared to air. Punting it continuously costs up to 1/3 of a fish's total energy budget. Just let that sink in for a second. Imagine if you had to spend 30% of your daily calories just to flex your diaphragm so you could breathe. Because of this huge energy drain, some apex predators like great white sharks and mako sharks have just abandoned the pump entirely. They rely on something called ram ventilation. They essentially just swim with their mouths open, forcing water through by sheer speed. The catch? If they stop swimming, they die. They are literally condemned to eternal motion just to breathe. Section 2. Breaking the rules, weird breathers. Now, nature absolutely hates a dead end. So what happens when the water gets warm, stagnant, and the oxygen runs dangerously low? Well, evolution has come up with some wildly inventive ways to get around it. First, let's look at how vastly different oxygen needs can actually be. On one hand, you have the rainbow trout, which consumes a massive 524.8 milligrams of oxygen per hour for every kilogram of body weight. Because of this, the trout needs cold, highly oxygenated, fast-moving mountain streams just to survive. But then, look at the carp. It requires significantly less oxygen. Carps can totally survive in sluggish, warm, muddy waters where a trout would literally suffocate in minutes. But believe it or not, some fish live in waters so poor in oxygen that even a carp's gills wouldn't be enough to keep them alive. Enter the labyrinth organ. If you have ever kept a betta fish or a gourami, you've probably seen them dart to the surface of the tank to take a gulp of air. They aren't just doing that for fun. They possess a highly specialized folded pocket just above their gills, completely packed with blood vessels. They literally gulp atmospheric air and the oxygen diffuses directly into their blood. And here's the wildest fact about these fish. If you prevent them from reaching the surface to gulp air, they will literally drown underwater, even if the water itself is perfectly oxygenated. No way, right? Oh, but it gets weirder. Let's rapid fire through some truly bizarre evolutionary breathing methods. First up, lungs. Yes, lungs. The African lungfish can actually burrow into the mud when their lakes dry up, form a little mucus cocoon, and sleep for 5 to 9 months, breathing purely atmospheric air. Next, skin. Eels can absorb up to 60% of their required oxygen straight through their wet skin. This is what allows them to slither across wet grass for huge distances. And finally, my absolute favorite, intestines. The loach, which is a small bottom-dwelling fish, swallows air at the surface, passes the bubble all the way down its highly vascularized digestive tract, extracts the oxygen, and then burps it out of its anal opening. I mean, come on, using your intestines as a lung? That is peak evolutionary genius right there. Okay, so we've seen fish that pump water, ram water, gulp air, and breathe through their skin and intestines, which naturally leads us to Section 3, the ultimate plot twist, holding breath. Because what if the very best way to save energy on breathing is to just stop breathing? Meet Chaunax umbrinus, a deep-sea ambush predator closely related to the anglerfish. This little guy lives way down on the ocean floor, in the pitch dark. It has a little lure on its head to attract prey, and mostly, it just sits completely still, propped up on its fins. Because it's an ambush predator, energy conservation is everything. And remember how we said breathing costs up to 1/3 of a fish's energy? Well, this fish has found a major loophole. It simply holds its breath. Think about this for a second. A normal fish goes through a breathing cycle, pumping water in and out every half a second to maybe 6 seconds. But Chaunax umbrinus, they hold massive amounts of water in their gill chambers for 60 to 180 seconds at a time. They take a giant gulp, lock their gill slits tightly shut so no water escapes, and just sit there. Because they have huge gill cavities and a massive surface area of lamellae inside, they can just let the oxygen slowly diffuse into their blood without doing all the muscular work of pumping. And actually, this bizarre behavior has a brilliant secondary benefit. When they take this massive gulp of water and lock their gills shut, they physically expand by 20 to 30% in volume. So not only are they saving precious metabolic energy by not pumping water, but they puff up to look like a giant, spiky, completely inedible ball, scaring off any potential predators lurking in the deep. They have essentially turned breath holding into both an energy-saving life hack and a really clever defense mechanism. From the flawless physics of countercurrent blood flow, to fish that breathe through their intestines, to deep-sea predators that hold their breath to save energy, the way fish extract life from water is honestly nothing short of miraculous. Evolution perfected the gill over hundreds of millions of years, solving complex engineering problems with the most elegant biological solutions. So I'll leave you with this final thought. If something as basic as breathing can be this weird, wild, and incredibly complex underwater, what other engineering secrets is the ocean hiding in the dark? Keep learning, keep questioning, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.